Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of Wisdom and Wealth here at the Pro Capital Show. I'm your host, Corey Proctor. I'm excited. We got a good guy we want to listen to today, Brad Ball. But I recently met thanks to one of our advisors, Shaylor Smith, and we've had some pretty cool things go on with Brad and some other relationships that have happened that have been great for business, but also really great for wisdom. So we asked him to join us, and thankful to have him today. But I'm going to ask Shaylor to just give a little background on where you guys at. You have more history together than I do.
Oh, I've got some history with Brad. I've known
The way you
Brad.
said that.
Oh yeah, I've known Brad my entire life. He's a few years older than I am, but so he growing up, he was kind of like a big brother. I remember uh, going over to his house a lot when I was young. When our families would hang out. They had the most amazing swimming pool in their backyard growing up. We went over there for the 4th of July all the time. Brad, he's got two brothers. They were always very athletic, always into sports growing up. So as a young guy, you're like, oh, wow, that's cool. Brad had that. He had the posters on his bedroom wall, like the Bo Jackson poster, like where half of it's him in the football gear and half of it's him in the baseball gear, and the Michael Jordan poster where his arms are stretched out wide.
Everybody had that.
Yeah, everybody had
Yeah.
that. That was my introduction to that was through Brad. So, and then went on ski trips together growing up with his dad. His dad was always fun to go on trips with. He always had some stories to tell, and it was so a lot of history there. And then
When Shaylor wanted to ask for dating advice, who do you call?
Fred. It must have worked. He's married. Good.
well, it took a while, but yeah. So a lot of history there, and then now Brad has gone on and had success in business, And so I remember Brad when he was going to school at Texas Wesleyan, and then I've kind of watched from a distance as he's grown and started a business and had some success there. So yeah. So Brad, why don't you tell us kind of your journey?
So, as I said, my name's Brad Ball. I have a company called Ardent Creative. It's in a short form, it's an ad agency. This day and age, you have a lot of digital agencies that focus on Facebook and marketing. We're kind of old school. We'll start with branding all the way into website development and started that in '05. I started on my own in 2000. And part of that story was I quit my job at Texas Wesleyan to take care of my mom because she was sick. So I could work the same amount of time making, or half the time making the same amount of money, if not more, and help take care of her. So that was my venture into business. I actually got an art degree, not a business degree. So I'm focused on the creative sides of things more than anything, but that's really been my journey. My mom probably would have told you, yeah, I'll be in business. I never thought I would be. I thought I might be a pastor and an artist, not a business person. But I've just kind of learned and have a knack for it, I guess, over the years and, build relationships. And that's really kind of, how I've gotten to where I am today.
So basically, he's saying he's like Walt Disney.
Well,
He was like an artist, but really a better businessman than he was an artist. So pretty awesome.
I'm okay being in that caliber of name.
take that. What's so man, like right before we jumped on, we were talking about starting the company, growing. Um, Obviously, like finances end up being a lot of times our bottom line, right? Over 80% of businesses fail within the first 4 years. Another 80% fail in the years after that. And so longevity is a game. Ultimately, we got to be making money or profit to stay in business or make the thing worth it, right? Like how take us through the journey a little bit, like from soup to nuts to where you are today, to like how's that journey gone in the business, and like what's some like key pieces that you've learned along the way to make sure that this thing lasts?
I mean, I think for me, the key takeaway is just being committed to what it is that I'm doing. What's that purpose at the end of the road? And I remember when we first started, so I started in 2000 and then '05, me and my business partner teamed up because we're like, hey, we can get a lot more done together because we were passing jobs back and forth. And so for, maybe a year, we took a overall pay cut, right? But we hired our first employee and that really started the journey. But we knew we had the ability and the flexibility to do that, to grow to where we wanted to get. And so at the same point, we've never like, oh, we're going to pull everything out of the business and just take it ourselves. It's like we know how much we need to do to survive, but also where we want to go as a business and how do we reinvest into that business and reinvest into our lives. And so it's kind of a mutual, both personal and business, as it relates to building stability and wealth along the way.
Okay. So what's like, give me like a big, what was something big? Like if you have a specific story or something, you came back and you're like, all right, I know not to do this.
Well, the biggest story that's most recent, because I think everybody's been on this journey in the last 4 years since COVID of just the roller coaster, inflation's high, and how do you navigate that? And so we're very big on a team. We've had as many as 30 plus people on our team. We're just, we're probably about 19 right now. And last summer, and it got really slow. Just leads kind of crawled, whether Facebook or Google kind of changed their algorithms, whatever it was, we just weren't getting the same quality of leads. And so we're churning money, and we're also in the at the end of finishing a software that we're trying to launch. Because one of our mantras is we want to be an incubator for other businesses. Well, that can cost money to do that. And so our profits are lower. We're investing money into things that aren't generating revenue. So we had to make some big changes. So we ended up cutting about 8 or 9 total people.
Mm,
So a couple contractors, but 6 full-time people. And that's probably the hardest thing you can do, because when you believe in your people and you build relationships, letting them go is tough. But that was probably the best thing we ever did, because as you build a business, you want to scale and grow. Because man, I can hit, the biggest thing is $1 million. I hit $1 million. Okay, then that's the hardest threshold typically you'll hear people take. Once you get through that, then maybe it's 10 million. There's just, it's a journey. And but growing kept sucking our profits, because we're investing in this new software, investing in people, and not we're looking at growth versus what does that margin actually look like. And so I stepped back and looked at that. Okay, we want to hit 20% margins, period. What does that look like? So we trimmed back people that we didn't necessarily need because we were overstaffed building the software, and get back to the basics. And so, at that point, returning cash, we're into our line of credit quite a bit. And then that would have been, we went through layoffs in September of last year.
mm,
November started to pick up. December was a great month. Here we are 9, 10 months later, line of credit's paid back. There's more money than that in the bank. Cash flow is great. Leads are great. Everything's back to normal. We're in a good position in terms of growth moving forward. And we still have some investment in that software because we just launched it last week for a client. So there's some money there, but if I roll that back in, we're running at least 20% margins. So now we're in a much healthier place moving forward. And so as a young entrepreneur business owner, it was hard to really, I didn't run the business as a business. It was more like, hey, this is what I do. I'm a freelancer. And then probably 10 years ago, shifted that script of, okay, this needs to be run like a business with mission, vision, culture. You know, there's a book called Profit First that is a good for people that are just out trying to, start their business, or it's, hey, you need to make sure you make your money along the way. Otherwise, it's not healthy.
right.
If you can't pay yourself, then you don't really have a business. You have a job. And so, shifting that and building the core values and the mission and personal brand and those type things have been important.
So walk, walk through this. Like how are you identifying the people when you're overstaffed? Like I mean, how do you
So
like
part of that,
you guys do that in house? Do you hire somebody to bring
no, we
stuff
did that
in?
all in house. I
Yeah.
mean, because we're in the nuts and bolts of what's coming in business wise, where we're most successful at, where we're most efficient at,
Yeah.
and where we're least profitable. And so, where you're least profitable, cut those things out and focus on the things that are much they're easier to manage and maintain. And so it's kind of that 80-20. There's 80% of your clients, or 20% of your clients take up 80% of their time.
Right.
Mhm.
And if you can identify that, it's going to make you a lot more profitable in the long run. And so it was kind of that type of scenario. And it was pretty much cut and dry. There was one employee that we had somewhat of a debate on our executive team about. And ultimately, I made the call. We need to keep that person. It was probably the best decision we did for culture purposes, but also just they work very hard, and they're good at what they do, and they're kind of a foundational piece of where we're at now. So But yeah, that's kind of just internally, and throughout the years we've done personality tests, and so we know our core team that we have now. We know a lot about them as it relates to who they are as employees. But they've been with us for over 5 years, so they're committed to what we're doing, and vice versa.
Talk about that. So that's been a so hiring is obviously a tough deal for a lot of people. We had Marty B on not too long ago. He was like, he goes, we wear our values on our sleeve and make sure it's known up front so we don't have any problems later on. But he was great because he goes, we try not to, squirrels are a lot better climbing trees. They're better than elephants. So we try to hire squirrels, not elephants, right? So we don't have to train an elephant to do that when a squirrel's already good. Uh, I mean, so I thought it was kind of a cool deal. But like when you're hiring people naturally to grow, to offload or delegate tasks, right? Or even identifying those who's that we need to bring into our lives. Like what's been the personality test, but like what's been like a key element for you guys as you've gone through, maybe struck out on a couple? Because I know we have, but what how has that formed your guys' hiring process or even your eye as you guys start looking for new people?
So whenever we hire somebody, it's that 60 to 90-day trial of really trying to get to know somebody, because you can go through an interview and they can ace the interview and they're amazing,
Yeah.
but you get them into the office, it's completely off. And we had one person come in and they were talking negatively about one of our executive team members, and it just created this horrible culture. So within a day or two after they've been with us a week, we cut them. It's like, this isn't going to work. And so being able to be honest and identify that, but you also have to understand and know yourself first. If you don't know who you are and what your culture is, then you're gonna have a hard time hiring. And so, and that was where we struggled a little bit. We'd hire people out of college and we'd train them our way, and that worked to a period. But you need to hire the best people possible for that position. And if that's somebody you can train up, that's great, but they got to be willing to put in the effort and put in the work. If you don't put in the time, you're not going to get anything out of it. And so for us, the personality tests are fine, but sometimes they were misguided to us because they can share one thing, but once you get them in the office, it's like, okay, what are the details? Are they fast enough? Because as a creative guy, I could hire a designer, and you know we'll get these great portfolios that look amazing, but they were team projects. Like, what part of this project did that person actually do? How long did it take? It could have taken them a whole semester to do one project, whereas we'll do that project in a week or a day.
Yeah.
So we can't run a business with somebody that takes a month to do a project. It's got to be done like, ASAP. So those you can't really gauge as well in an interview process. And it's just sitting in the room and getting them face to face, eye to eye, and you can sense a lot of times who people are just by the presence in the room.
That's been a big thing I've seen is speed is an issue
You've talked
for a
about
lot of
that
people.
quite a bit lately,
Yeah.
about how we move at a fast pace and we've had to make some adjustments for those people that don't, and it's been really good. Uh, one of the things you said right before we went on was, and I just wanted to hear you clarify, balancing uh, your family and your business. And you talked about, there's been lots of opportunities for you to maybe go make some more money, but it would have come at a cost that is a price that you are not willing to pay. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, and part of it's how we define wealth.
Right.
Most
Just
people
talk about
define wealth as money. Well, I mean, I have seniors in high school right now that I've got a year left with them. I have twins. And so time to me right now is of more value than money.
Mhm.
And so when I look back over the last 24 years and look at my life, it's like, man, I could have made a lot more money if I would have worked 60, 78 hours a week, but at sacrificing time with my family and kids. So generally, I'm always on, but I'm not at my computer after 6 o'clock. I'm at home. I can have dinner every night with the kids. I can go to their events and those types of things. I had a lunch meeting today with my cousin, and he was working all weekend. And he's a kind of an attorney guy, so it was just kind of a series of unfortunate events. But there's a lot of businesses and people that they don't ever stop. And then you look back, you're like, where did all that time go? I didn't have time with my family. And so I got married in 2002, and we're still married today and love my wife with everything, my kids. And I wouldn't want to sacrifice that for any money. There's nothing that would replace that. And on the flip side, when you look at that as it relates to your employees and their livelihoods, is that if you have a culture of family, what does that look like? Because if your home life is in shambles, if your employees' home life is in shambles, more than likely that's going to carry over into their work life. And how is that going to impact their productivity or their worth as it relates to the business? And so the more I can encourage that as a culture, the more we're going to be successful. And so, if you want a story, years ago we had this might have been 10 years ago now. We hired a developer, and we don't. I'm a Christian guy, but we don't just hire Christian people. And it's like, who's the best, or what's the right fit? So we have a lot of developers because we do high-end web development, and they can be very analytical. And one of our guys is, atheist guy, but very, scientific, has to be proven to him. And at one point, we had to let go of one of our team members and went through this very dark culture within our business. And at Christmas time, we did this event at a lake house, and had babes cater it, really good food, and then we had these envelopes. So usually we'll give out Christmas bonuses, but this year we had envelopes that we handed to them, and each member of our executive team said something encouraging about that person at the event. And so it was really powerful experience just to encourage, our team members, and everybody walked away excited. But this one developer came up to me afterwards and he goes, "Man, Ardent is the best place I've ever worked at." And he goes, "When you talk about family, you mean it." And so I was like, that's what it's all
Yeah.
about. Because, all the hardships that we went through to get to that point, and looking back at how he's grown in his own life means more to me than any amount of money that I could have made. And he's still with us today. And so he's a key component of our leadership team and where we're going and what we're doing. He can be opinionated, but it was there came a point to where there were some disagreements in the office, and I sat down with him and I actually listened to him, and I finally it clicked and I understood him. It wasn't that he was being controversial or wanted to argue, is that his heart was he wanted to see the company thrive and grow. He just communicated very directly.
Yeah.
And when I realized that and understood that, mindset shifted, the company shifted, and everything changed.
There's a lot of people who don't have an ability to communicate directly. There's actually some cool studies about that. But like that's like the East Coast. Everybody's a bunch of jerks on the East Coast. I'm like, no, man. They
No.
just say what's on their
Yeah.
mind. There's no filter.
Yeah.
Well, we tease because this guy worked on a nuclear sub for several years, and
No big deal.
we tease like, yeah, he was the one that could have pushed the button type thing.
Yeah.
Uber smart, and so, but people communicate differently, and that's the thing as people, whether you're a business owner or just trying to build wealth, it's understanding how to communicate, but also how to listen. Because sometimes I'm not a very good listener because I have ideas running, so I start spitting ideas out without slowing down and listening. And I went to a conference, and it was Logan Paul, or one of the Paul brothers, was talking, and it was a question and answer. And was asked a question, he would sit there and pause, and then he would speak. It wasn't like he just spat it off. You could tell he was processing what he wanted to say. And so I'm trying to learn to slow down that process myself.
I got some meathead buddies that they just jump to the fast answer, and I'm like, shut up for a second. But that's been a great one because you'll see some guys take that in really well and like eat the answer or eat the question before you regurgitate something bad, right? Uh, so I like that. Well, that's good. Well, okay, well, give me something. What you had like? What's one of your biggest wins, or like something you could look back to, and you're like, hey, this action or this specific thing in our history led to a major growth opportunity where um, like our big belief, right, is that wealth comes from wisdom. Obviously, I can define wealth as time, treasure, or even my talent, right? And time is a huge piece of wealth. But what a lot of times what people look at is, well, like if I had enough money, I would have time, and that is a lot of times that freedom to take off work. What I don't have to go and work the 9 to 5. But what's been a big thing, either at your company or this could be even a behavior that you took before starting the company into this that led to a big growth here profit wise or some big explosive. And I give like an example was when I got my mentor, I thought we were doing really good. But then when I got hooked up with her and got her wisdom from the industry that we're in, it went a whole nother level. Right. And so I can point to very specific stories and behaviors that changed that trajectory.
I mean, the quick, easy answer for that was when we joined a mastermind group
Okay.
of just being around other business leaders. And, like an EO, my business partner was an EO for a while. I was in one called War Room. And you're just around a bunch of like-minded people. And so the thing that I'm actually a partner in a mastermind now too. And I think the thing that differentiator is when you're in those rooms, and the reason why a coach is good is that there's vulnerability,
Yeah.
that you're able to identify your weaknesses so you become stronger. And because you butt heads every day on the offensive defensive line, you're going to learn real quick where your weaknesses are, and so then you work at those. But as business owners or as people, a lot of times we sit on an island and we don't challenge ourselves. But in those rooms of being vulnerable, that's where the real magic can happen. And so when you're talking about significant things, when I look back around 2012, we set out because we've always wanted to be an incubator for other businesses. And what does that look like? Well, we set out to build this social. It wasn't social media. It was like a Groupon type business with a multi-level marketing arm. Because Groupon, they're selling all these coupons and they're doing all these deals. Well, what if people got paid by sharing, referring those deals? And so we built out this whole big elaborate business, launched it, and we had about 20,000 followers. But at that point, Groupon was losing $250 million. They had burned all these businesses, burned bridges with these businesses. And we're at this decision: do we invest more money or do we just burn this to the ground because of the timing and everything else? Because Groupon, they're not even really around anymore, right? I mean, they're somewhat, but and that was probably a wise decision. But when I look at that one point in time, I can identify that as a milestone, because if we haven't gone through that process, we would have never learned how to build big, elaborate development projects, which is what led into some of our biggest revenue generating pieces of work that we do. That's also the stickiest and most profitable. And there's a lot of agencies out there that they sell marketing. Marketing is the hardest thing that you can do, because it's always changing. You do something great, the client's not happy because it's not enough leads, or there's some that were junk, and you're navigating all this nuance. They're not good at sales, so who gets the brunt of the issues? We do.
Right.
But if it comes to branding, web development, and software, I mean, I've got clients that I've had for 20 plus years because we stick with them and we host their sites and we maintain them, we keep them growing, and it's a sticky business. And so for us, identifying that as a sticky point in the business has made us more successful in the long run. But I never set out to build this uber multi-million dollar entity.
Yeah.
At first, it was I was a freelancer, take care of my family and have time. And what does that look like over time? And I can look back over my 24 years or our 20 years, and I can see that 10 to 20% year over year growth, 10 to 15% profit. Obviously, it fluctuates up and down, but on average, I have a spreadsheet that documents all that. To me, that's consistent growth and the most important type of growth you can have. Hockey stick growth scares me.
Yeah.
That doesn't scare me.
Well, it's because it goes up.
I understand what you're saying. Easy come, easy go.
Yeah, and then it can fall right back down.
It
Like
can,
I wouldn't,
yeah.
if I was going to buy a business, it wouldn't be a hockey stick. I would want it slowly on the way,
Right.
on the way
Predictable
up.
growth. Right.
That's unpredictable.
Yeah. It's true. But yeah, it still has to be managed, the
Correct.
hockey stick. And I think a lot of people are weeded out before that happens, but it's manageable. It's just, I think, being able to take a breath and obviously that looks different for everybody.
I mean, if it's software and it's hockey stick growth, that's different.
Yeah,
If it's a product and you can manage, supply and demand, that could be
that's
different.
different. That's a different deal,
Yeah.
right?
So there is some nuance to that. So I'm kind of generalizing the hockey stick
Right.
mentality, but I think you understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah, totally. What we'll do this as we start to close out the episode a little bit. What I'm interested in some of these companies that you guys work with. What have it like? What because things I start thinking about is a lot of times companies cut marketing, right? And so it's hard when I'm doing SEO. It's hard when I'm running advertisements or even paid ads on social channels. it's not always returned today,
Mhm.
right? And so it's badly needed, but it hurts to wait for. And it's so easy to just cut the cord when I'm not seeing the return, or even if the company falls on hard times, right? Uh, and so tell me, of all the company you guys have worked with, like what have you seen as the top behaviors from those companies? Maybe not necessarily following your guys' advice on the marketing side, but like what have you seen from them behaviorally that has been some of the best producing? If you can think of something.
I think it's, a lot of people freak out. Oh, it's, inflation and down economy. Oh, we got to pull back. And to some extent, that may be true. But I think the most successful typically may double down and they actually go more into marketing. Because when things get tight, market may shrink, but guess
Yeah.
what? That's where you can gain market share and growth. So when you come out of it, you're in a way different position because you may not be making as much money, but market share wise may have grown. So once things get back into more of a stable playing field, you're on a rocket ship because of those decisions you made in the times when it was difficult. And so that's hard to, get people to buy it and to follow through with. But those that do generally come out on top.
That's it, man. I love bad times. I'm like, it stretches you, right? But
Yeah.
I love a lot of times we'll get asked of like, oh, down market. We're like, are you guys nervous right now? No.
Yeah.
I'm like, I love it. This
Well,
squeezes competition out.
yeah, both you guys know I would not be where I am today without bad
Bet.
times.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Well, I think
I mean,
people don't like failure, but that's where
Yeah.
you learn and grow.
yeah.
That's where you become really established in what you believe and where you're going.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like a marriage, right? I'm like you and your wife or your spouse fall on hard times. Are you gonna bounce? I'm like, what does that make of you if that's the case? No, you double down on this thing. You're like, no, we committed to this
Yeah.
thing, and we will absolutely come out way better than we anticipated, even going through this hard, uncomfortable, emotional time a lot of
Mm.
times, right? And
I quote you all the time. I tell my wife, like Corey says, babe, if you leave, I'm coming with you.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Buckle up, buttercup. That's awesome.
Yeah. And if I leave, you're coming with me.
Yeah. I stole that from my uncle, so
Okay.
he's proud of me
Yeah.
for that
Good.
one.
It's a good one.
Dude, Brad, thank you so
Yeah.
much for coming on. This is awesome. Appreciate you and obviously your family. You got some amazing things going on. It takes a strong wife to be able to help be a partner at home, right? Take care of the kids and make sure like we have an ability to go to
Yeah.
work. So
And she's starting her own business or has her own business too,
Awesome.
which is a whole other story.
Yeah.
not just for looks, baby.
No, no, no,
Yeah.
it's good.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks, Brad,
Yeah,
for coming on.
appreciate it. Thank you for having me.